remember the conversation that I had with Luca de Montezemolo. Sounds a bit pretentious, that. I remember my conversation with Luca de Montezemolo, who was then the president of Ferrari, but I did, and it was in the pits at Fiorano, and I asked him absolutely straight, but will Ferrari ever make an SUV? And he looked at me and he scowled, and I thought he was actually going to hit me just for a couple of seconds, but then he said, over my dead body. Well, dear old Luca is 8 or 9 years older now, but this is a Ferrari SUV, so times have changed.
Except, of course, according to Ferrari, the Purosangue is not an SUV at all. It's instead a 4-door sports car. And there will be arguments about such definitions for as long as the sun keeps shining, you suspect. But what's not in doubt are the Purosangue's credentials, or indeed the hardware that lurks beneath its radical new styling. At the front sits a whopping great 6.5 litre V12 engine that's attached to an 8-speed dual-clutch gearbox. At each corner sits a driven wheel that's also steered and actively suspended by electronics. And at the back are a pair of suicide doors that provide passengers with a unique way into and out of the 2.2-tonne Purosangue's rear seats. The price doesn't even start until 313 grand, and the options list is as long and potentially as confusing as the car's hyper-complex new HMI system, in which the acronym stands for Human Machine Interface, just in case you didn't realise that. But on the move, well, none of that really matters, to be honest, because on the move,
it is a dead cool thing, is the Ferrari Purosangue. There are no two ways about it. It's fast, it's funky, it sounds unbelievable, it looks stunning in the flesh. It really is a bit of a knee trembler, I have to admit. But you know all that, you know all about the fact that it's got this monstrous atmospheric V12 engine in it. I'll tell you a bit about the Ferrari active suspension technology in a bit, which is, the acronym stands for fast. But what we want to know about here immediately is what it's like to drive. And let me tell you, it's pretty special. You still do feel like you're sitting up much higher than you do in a normal Ferrari. And you have to get your brain past that moment, past that little bit of sort of mental hurdle that you naturally have. If you've driven a few Ferraris, as I'm lucky enough to have done so, I got into this thing thinking it's just going to be like every other Ferrari, in that it's going to be fabulous and that you're going to feel absolutely nailed to the ground and flat and low, and everything's going to be uber precise with no roll and yet still an amazing ride quality. The Purosangue doesn't have that, because you do sit so much higher than you do in any other Ferrari, and you just can't escape that. But once you accept that up here, and once you realise that the centre of gravity is a bit higher, crikey, it's awesome. Ferrari says you can't really compare the Purosangue to anything else, and I totally know where they're coming from. This absolutely rinses a Cayenne or a Lamborghini Urus or a Range Rover Sport. Different league, totally different league, dynamically. Fantastic gearbox as usual, 8-speed DCT gearbox, with 7th and 8th very much as kind of cruising ratios, and the first 6 to do that in. It's kind of surreal being able to do this kind of stuff, drive that hard, that precisely in an SUV. But of course we mustn't call it an SUV, because as far as Ferrari is concerned, it's not an SUV, it's a thoroughbred. It's an SUV.
And so the arguments will continue. But look, however you choose to try and define the Purosangue, in the end, it's a difficult thing to pigeonhole, because in some ways it is quite a lot like an SUV, and yet at other times it feels very much like the sports car Ferrari claims it to be. One thing it isn't though is especially well packaged. Question is, does that actually matter?
Okay, it's only got 4 seats, and there isn't that much room in the back there. The headroom at the back's not that brilliant. The legroom's all right, but the headroom's not that great, and the boot's just about okay, so the packaging isn't marvellous. But for 4 people and their luggage, I can't think of a more exciting way to travel than in this car. I'm not sure it exists. And in those terms, Ferrari really have hit the spot. This one's on winter tyres, so I can't really tell you just how much snap and precision there is at the front. It feels properly sharp, properly sort of incisive, but it is kind of moving around quite a lot because these roads are a little bit dusty. And winter tyres ain't really what you want when you've got 715 bhp and winter tyres. I mean, it's quite an amusing combination, but it's not really allowing this chassis to shine, as I suspect, in the way it will. But look, gosh, I mean, the 4-wheel drive system is, you wonder if it's even there sometimes, because it's just an oversteer monster. And it's got this independent 4-wheel steering, so the rear wheels will just ever so slightly steer independently of one another. That's a bit trick, but this whole car is a bit trick. They say they're not going to put a hybrid drivetrain in it. They say that the Purosangue is a thoroughbred. That's what it means in Italian. So therefore, it's not going to get a hybrid drivetrain. I don't know if I fully believe them, because they'd have to be absolutely loopy not to put a V6 hybrid, at the very least, in this platform. It really genuinely is like no other car I've ever driven this. Like no other Ferrari I've ever driven. It's mentally fast. It's really precise. It rides nicely. It steers very well indeed. Nowhere near as sharp and precise as a mid-engine Ferrari or a front-engine Ferrari, but you've got to remember that you're sitting that much higher, and not even the brilliant engineers at Ferrari can defy the laws of physics completely in the end. But what they have done is create something that is just absolutely amazing. It's a bit of a miracle, this car, and I absolutely love it.
So in the end, it doesn't really matter if it's an SUV or a sports car, or just some kind of weird hybrid between the two. Fact is, there is nothing else quite like the Purosangue. So even at 313 grand, you cannot help but be blown away by it. Not if you have so much as an ounce of petrol in your veins. Even just as a home for Ferrari's magnificent V12 engine, the Purosangue should be celebrated, should be relished. But as it happens, it's way more significant than that, because it's the most exciting SUV there's ever been, and probably ever will be. And surely not even Ferrari would argue with that.